I'm going to walk through an agent just like this. It's going to go out, get the news for any topic, bring all that information back, summarize that, and send me a Slack message so I have that ready to go when I start work. So let's build this out step by step. First, since I can't have two triggers, I'm going to disconnect this one and I'll build it out step by step over here. I'm going to click here, go to AI, create an AI agent. I'll leave all those settings the same. And now I have my basic AI agent here. I can press spacebar to rename it, and we'll call this AI agent to get the news. Now I'm going to attach the brain, so I'll use Open Router because it will allow me to change any of these. I'm going to stick with 4.1 mini because we don't need any heavy calculation here. And I'm going to give it simple memory. I'm going to rename these, so we'll say news search 4.1 mini so I can remember what it is, and then news search memory, and now it's all nicely labeled. Now I'm going to give it the two tools. First, I'm going to give it the ability to connect to Perplexity, and next I'm going to give it the ability to send a message in Slack. So the first thing that I'm going to do is search for the Perplexity tool, which is right down here. I've already got my credentials set up, and I want the model or the AI to define this. So I'm going to click this little star icon, and then I'm going to give it a description, and I'm going to say, hey, please create a query to find the latest news. Let's see, I'm going to turn simplify output on because I don't want all the data that Perplexity responds with. I just want the simple responses, and that's really going to help the token count with this. So now I have a tool that will message in Perplexity. I'm going to set some additional settings in this here in a second, but for right now, I'm going to get everything laid out. The next tool that I want to use is the Slack tool. And again, I have my credentials already set up. I'm going to send a message to a user, and I'm going to send it directly to me. There we go. And I'm going to have AI define what the text is, and I'm going to give it the description of this should be the message to the user of the summarized text for the news search. Now, if I look over here in my original one, I have the search recency filter, and that's set to a day. Now, the reason I have that set is because this runs every day at 6 a.m. And so essentially, I don't want Perplexity to return all the news from as far back as it can go. I want it to, let's see, let's find this here, search recency filter. I just want it to return the last day. And so every day that it runs, it's just going to get the newest day that'll send the information in here. Okay, so now we have everything set up. We've got Slack is set up, Perplexity is set up, memory is set up, the brain is set up, the schedule is set up, but we are missing the prompts here. So this says it's connected to a chat trigger node. That's not what we want. We need this to be defined, and then we're going to define what that prompt is. And the other thing that I need to watch out for here is in the memory, it's connected to a chat trigger node. I need to define that below. What I'm going to do is change this to an expression. I'm going to use the double curly braces, start with a $, start typing execution, and you'll see it has the autocomplete. And this is now the execution. And so we can see this is the execution object, and it gives me all these different things. What I'm going to do is use the execution ID. And essentially what this is saying is every time this runs, it has an execution ID. Use that so that all the memory stays within that specific execution ID. If it reruns again, this is going to be a different set of memory that it's going to track because it's going to be a different execution ID. Okay, so the last thing that we want to do in here is look at the prompt that I put together, and I'm going to copy this out of here and then put it in our new one that I just built, and then I'll walk through exactly how this works. So a little trick in N8N is if you switch the prompts to expression, you have this little icon down here that you can click on, and now we can see the full big thing. And one thing that I'm going to do real quick is run just this node, and that loads data into here, and you can see it's green, so it's passing data into here. And if I double click on this, we now see that that node before us, the schedule trigger, has all this information that's being pulled. And if I expand this, we can now see what was previously not visible is now dynamically being populated. So I've split this prompt out into a number of different sections. First, the role. You're an AI industry news analyst. Now, this you could change and customize to anything for however you want this to go and search the web based on what it is. I then give it context. LLMs and AI don't always know what today's date is, but if you pass it through, then they know. And so it gives them context into what it is. Today is whatever today is. You have access to the Perplexity tool for research and the Slack tool for communication. That's the context that I give it. Then I give it instructions. And all of this is in Markdown. So all these extra symbols, like these two asterisks, that means this is bold. Of course, we have it numbered. This one pound sign, and then this is a H1 header. So you can create semantic content around this inside of a prompt, which really helps the LLMs and the AIs understand how all the text is formatted in here. All right, so the instructions are you search Perplexity, then you synthesize the response, then you post in Slack. I'm summarizing, but that's about it. And then I give it example output format for Slack so it knows what to work with. Now, this emoji can be part of it. We could actually take that out and just give the summary. I'm actually going to take this date here and move this back here because I don't want it to slip up and get an idea that it should hard code that date. So I'm going to give it the example with the actual date and time, and then give it a layout of what it is. Okay, now one important thing is in the synthesize step, if we have it summarize the findings into a clear bulleted list, but it can't find anything within the last 24 hours, just state no major updates. So when I go to run and test this, it may just say no major updates because there might not be any updates over the weekend. I'm recording this on a Monday. So let's go ahead and save this, and I'm going to execute this, and we can watch and see what happens. Now, if I bring up the logs down here, we can actually see exactly what order it's doing it in. Now, while this is running, I could actually go through and I could have built this in this long workflow and mapped all these out in the right order and then routed data and did all this logic. But in order to do that, it's just really, really complicated. Whereas an agent, I can just give it instructions and it does this. So I do want to point out a couple things here. If I look at the log, it first checks the memory. Oh, there's nothing in the memory. So cool, I can continue on. Then the AI gets the initial prompt and it says, okay, what should I do? Well, I need to go through and let's find stuff. This is the message text that it's going to send to Perplexity. Latest news on Google, Gemini, and DeepMind updates in the last 24 hours, focusing on Gemini models, et cetera, et cetera. And so then that's the input. And the output is no major updates, blah, 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 blah. Cool. So then it does the same thing. It checks for OpenAI, and then it also checks for Anthropic updates. And so it pulls all the citations, summarizes it all, and then essentially it will check the memory again, double check it has everything, go to a message in Slack, and then do a final thing. Here are the updates. So this is what I received in my Slack message. The AI daily briefing, no major updates. The most recent update includes the release of Claude Opus, blah, 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 blah. If I were to change the AI model, we get a very different result. So this is 4.1 mini. It's fast. It's really cheap. But let's change this to like GPT 5.2. Let's save it. And I'm going to rerun this workflow. And then this will give us a stronger but more expensive model to work with. And so it's going to do the same calls to Perplexity. It's going to get the same information back, or very, very similar information, but it's going to process it a little bit different. You can see it's processing now, and then it's going to give us a different message in Slack because it's a different model that's being used here. And this is where it gets really important. For example, you could use Google Gemini, you could use Claude Sonnet, you could use Claude Opus, and experiment and determine what works best for you based on the information that it's returning back to your daily update. If the super cheap 4.1 mini works great, awesome. Now, one thing that you'll see here is that it called Perplexity again. So essentially, what it's doing is double checking that the information that it got was correct. 4.1 mini didn't do that, and you can see it's going back again. So this is where it's like, do we really need all of this? I probably wouldn't be using GPT 5.2 because I don't want it to make all these extra calls. I want it to get the information, I want it to process it, and I want to send it to Slack message. There we go. So finally, it made 7 different API calls to Perplexity. The message that it came out with was about the same, but it took a lot longer, it cost me more, and it made more API calls. So Anthropic, no major updates. OpenAI, no major updates. Google Gemini, Samsung announced something. All right, so it did find something. So again, you need to make the decision, is that worth it or not? And that's a good way to start testing out what are the right models for me. And when I'm designing something like this, it looks simple on the onset, but a simple change like a model can completely adjust how the whole thing operates. Now, if you like this content, please like and subscribe or follow, because I'm releasing a whole bunch of builds like this and information on how to build scalable companies in the AI era.